So much to catch up with today. So many updates. First of all, happy Canadian Thanksgiving to everybody. I was born and raised in Canada and moved to the States 23 years ago. But very grateful today for my Canadian heritage and all the values and good things I learned from my parents and my Canadian friends. Second thing, happy Mental Health Day yesterday. I put a couple of reels out there, but I just wanted to honor those that are working on and striving to take care of their mental health, who might struggle with it. I was just talking to a friend the other day about, he called it mental health despondency busters or despondency busters. And he had a list of 9 things on his list of when he gets discouraged, what does he do, and what moves does he make, what does he start to do to overcome his despondency. And for me, and I got thinking about my list, on the proactive side, I love to run. More update on that in a second. I got a funny story for you. Well, mostly funny, and most of me makes me look bad. But and then reactive side, a good book, whether it be scripture or a personal development book, or anything that inspires my mind, is often my despondency buster. I can be in a mood and read a good book, and it can inspire me to move on and make changes in my mood very quickly. So I'd encourage you to think about what your despondency busters are, and have those ready, available both to proact so that you don't get in that discouraged mood, or when it does come, you have some things, some levers you can pull and be that self-aware. So anyhow, happy Mental Health Day. So the funny part, before I give you my update on step 4 of the 7 steps for millennials to live young, happy, and rich. Step 4 is master your craft, work hard, work smart. But before I do that, I have a little bit of an embarrassing story. So I've been training all summer for the Huntsman. I'm in St. George today for the Huntsman Senior Games, and I had registered for the 10K. And my goal was to beat my personal best of 49:21. And I registered in late July for October 11th race, 10K. I registered last night, October 10th. Got my everything registered, woke up this morning to go run the race, and there's no race. I checked my information, and the race had been changed to October 4th. Several weeks ago, it had been changed to October 4th. I didn't get an email or reminder, and I didn't check. And I registered and everything last night at the convention center. Anyhow, big faux pas on my behalf. So the bad news is, Rick, you're not that good at planning. The good news is I ran the race anyhow. My dear wife took me up to the top of the race instead of, the bus normally would, and was there at the finish line to cheer me on. And I got a 46 minutes 26 for my 10K, which was a personal best as an old fella. And I was really pleased with the time. I looked up what I would have achieved had I run the race last, and I was 7 seconds off third place, or the bronze medal for my age category. So what a knucklehead. So bad news is, Rick, you need to improve your planning, operator error. Good news is, instead of getting discouraged, instead of throwing a fit or whatever, I just ran the race and had a blast. The weather was gorgeous. And it was beautiful coming out of Snow Canyon, the actual racetrack, and I was really pleased with my time. But and I could have made that 7 seconds up, if you're on race day and you've got times, anyhow. But it was super fun, super glad. But we're in St. George. I ran it a week later for the Huntsman Senior Games, but I'll get it next year. So anyhow, so the update today is on step 4, master your craft. Work hard, work smart. So this is all about, and so the why on this is to take personal pride in your career, in your job, and what you do, and be the best you can be at it. And there's tons of satisfaction and joy that comes from doing that, about mastering your craft, whatever it might be. If you're a surgeon, if you're an electrician, if you own a retail shop, or you're an accountant, CFO, whatever you are, master your craft, work hard, work smart. And there's tons of personal joy and satisfaction that comes from that. But it's also the real way to become financially successful, and I would argue happy. There's such joy in doing your job well. And so there's the personal, intrinsic side, and also there's big rewards if you really master your craft. If you're the best at whatever you do, or at least you're constantly working at improving at whatever you do. The work hard part you can't get around. Of course, we want to not be the people working 100 hours a week to get rich, because then you can't really find that joy and happiness. We're trying to find both, right? We're trying to be rich and successful and find that joy and peace and happiness that can come with life. And so you have to have your self-care principles. But working hard is an important element. I always tried to set up multiple streams of income, that's step 6, so that I could be earning income or revenue in my investments or my other businesses or my current business, even when I wasn't working. And that was an important principle for me. And that's about working smart. I love working hard, but I never wanted that to be my sole calling card, that I was the hardest worker and I had to work 100 hours a week in order to be rich, successful, and happy. Because I don't think you can do that. I don't think you can find the balance that we're striving for to be financially successful and happy. So working hard is important to a limit, but working smart is where you can really differentiate yourself. And this is constantly looking to master your craft, improve how you do things. Darren, my surgeon friend, is always looking to innovate. What's the latest scoping? Goes to the latest seminars, go to the latest certifications. How can I improve carpal tunnel syndrome was his conversation yesterday. How can I find a better procedure that's better for the customer and client? Always innovating. Whether you're an electrician, my friend Dan looks to optimize and make sure all the work packages are kit and ready to go for his electricians as they line up so they can be highly productive. Whatever your craft, master it, look to automate it, optimize it, looking for ways to streamline it. Taylor, my CFO son's always looking for ways to optimize his work procedures at work. And I think that is a real key. Let me give you a couple of examples of working smart that I'm talking about in my life, and that hopefully you can translate that into yours and your craft. So first of all, one from MBA school. As I talked about on other podcasts, I wasn't the smartest person in the class, so I had to really work hard. And when I came to my first exam, about 6 weeks into the program, I realized the working hard wasn't even good enough. I was one of the younger ones and least experienced in the program, and I didn't get a grade back that I liked. In fact, if I remember right, it was one of the lowest grades in economics, a C or a C minus. And I was pretty discouraged. And I went to one of the professors that I had built a bit of a relationship with, and I asked him, what can I do? He says, Rick, you have to work smart. Because I explained to him, I'm reading the cases, I'm working long hours. And he says, Rick, you got to learn to work smart. And I says, well, what exactly does that mean? He says, well, what's your strength in most of these cases? And I said, sales and marketing. He says, okay, then you study that sales and marketing. You get your participation in early. You get help from your teammates and your classmates in some of the areas you're not as strong at. But when you nail a case in sales and marketing, you make sure, because our grade was heavy on participation, you make sure and get in and add your insights, questions, comments right during that part. That's working smart. And it just hit me like a ton of bricks. And that was such an insightful insight for me on how to work smart. I still had to work hard, focus on my strengths, focus on the area and then get your participation in there, and then get help from other people on some of the areas you weren't as strong on. That is working smart. Another example from my consulting career, and hopefully you can adjust this to your career, but in my consulting career, I also had to figure out what's working smart mean. If you want to grow your business, if you want to have client satisfaction, you have to build revenue into your business. That's key for a service provider. How do I get more revenue? A lot of people spend time working on the internal business, on the expenses, on the internal procedures, and that's good and fine, but you can find somebody else on your team to do that. If the most important thing is to drive and grow revenue, well, what's the most important thing? This is working smart. What's the most important thing to drive revenue? In the consulting business, it's time with senior clients, it's trust building with senior clients. That's the most important thing to build revenue. So you're constantly asking yourself, what's the most important thing? That's about working smart, because you could work yourself to death, and a lot of people did, and still not grow the business because they were focusing on the wrong things or other things that looked important but weren't as important. Get your people, get your team to work on those other things that are not as important. You identify what's the most important thing. So for example, in consulting, it's revenue. In consulting, then how do you get that? You build trust with senior clients so they trust you to order your products, your services, your consulting services. So how do you build that trust with a senior client? Is it the best, sexiest presentation? Not always. I'll give you an example with Gary up in Alaska. And if you're listening, Gary, thank you so much. We were trying to build a business up in Alaska with the oil and gas, both on the efficiency side and on the safety side. And they have a lot of production up there. Gary was the leader up there that we were working with, and we were trying to build trust with him. And we found that the more time we spent on the slope finding deep, insightful insights about what's really going on in his business, and then came back to Anchorage with those insights, his trust in us and his senior team's trust in us, even if they didn't like consultants, even if they didn't like all the, didn't want to be shown as, sometimes it's, I'm a weak leader if I have to get help. But Gary's humility and Gary's striving for excellence and the trust we built in the insights about what's really going on in the slope in the workforce and what are the levers that we can do to drive continuous improvement, because that's what our consulting business was continuous improvement, built a deep trust with Gary that he let us, and we designed a large program, a large intervention with many coaches and consultants to help change the efficiency and the safety. And it was all through building the trust at the frontline workforce and being able to get them to have ownership and buy-in for their metrics and for their improvement program. So I know that's a lot there, but that is the principle of working smart. Finding out what the most important things are rather than the myriad of things that you can do. Don't get confused with too many metrics. And yes, some of those things still needed to be done. Taking care of employees, taking care of internal business and processes are important, but that's not the job. If the job is to drive revenue, then the key to that is to then build senior relationships and trust, and the key to doing that is having insights about what's actually happening in the workforce. Because these senior leaders, they're so far detached from what's really going on. If someone can bring them deep insights and have trust from the front line, and then build, and that can get you large contracts and large trust and grow your business. And of course, we did that in Alaska, and then we replicated that in the lower 48, and then we did that in many sectors and industries in lower 48. It was pretty exciting over a 10 to 15 year period. We actually grew our business. We doubled our business 4 times over this 12-year period. And it was all through understanding what's the most important thing and working smart. So I would encourage you to think about in your particular business and craft, what's the most important thing. In fact, do it in your life as well. What is the most important thing to work smart? Because you can get super busy. We had many senior consultants work harder than I did and spent a lot of time with employees, spent a lot of time with internal consulting procedures, and not as much time with the senior client, not as much time touching the front line to figure out what the real issues were. So what is the most important thing in your business to work smart? So you can work smart. So you don't have to be necessarily the most hardest worker, put in the most hours to be the most effective. And the key is working smart. So again, this has been step 4 on how to live, how to stay young, live a happy, rich, and success. In fact, the promise I'm making, you can actually be a multimillionaire and stay happy. And step 4 out of the 7 steps is to master your craft, be the very best you can at your craft, and figure out what the most important thing is inside of your craft and become great at that, and delegate some of those other things. In fact, some of those other things you might get to stop. You might not even have to do if you really look hard at it. So lots in here today. Still excited and successful. Looking forward to next year's World Huntsman Senior Games to run my 10K. But unofficially, I would have got 4th place today, so pretty happy with that. And also, my wife's pretty proud that I didn't get discouraged and still ran the race and having some fun today anyhow. So remember, work hard, work smart. Text me. Let me know if I can help with anything else to help understand what's the most important thing in your business or your life, and how can you be great at that. Anyhow, cheers for now. Continuous improvement for life.